All right, you've heard our guys raving about Louisiana fishing, red fishing, and just the great ecosystem they have over there, the great fishery they have over there. Let's go to Louisiana on today's podcast, and let's go talk to Captain Joe Ezzell. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, because
You got it.
all we've had was email discussions. Because I wanted to get you on here, Captain Joe Ezzell, and out of Delacroix, and I'm reminded of something Captain Caleb did. We were getting a request from someone just going to Louisiana, saying,
Mhm.
"I'm going for the first time. Where should I go?" And Caleb said, "Drive until you get to Delacroix. Drive until
Yeah.
you get to Delacroix. That's the place." So I want to dig in on several topics, of course,
Okay.
about Louisiana fishing, and then something that we haven't done a whole lot of, and I know you're an expert on, and that's matching lines and leaders with different styles of fishing, different depths, etc. So I want to get into all that, and just so people know, it is Whiskey Bayou Charters
That's it.
out of Delacroix, and you've been doing it for quite a while, since you were a little kid. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Let's get into Louisiana fishing and the differences it is. And we were talking before we got on live here, and I was talking about, closest I've ever gotten on a consistent basis. Now, I fished in Louisiana here and
Mhm.
there, but for about 5 years, I was in Sabine, and that's not really Louisiana, is it? I mean, tell us about what the fishery is like for you.
Sabine's close. Well, I mean, and a lot of guys, and if you look at statistics and you look at all the Redfish tournament series and everything else, a lot of this stuff hovers in and over and around Louisiana. And the reason it does is because of the coastline and the estuary, the amount of bank we've got. In essence, what Louisiana is a large portion of the estuary and the nursery for all the redfish population. That's all hatched in the Gulf, because redfish free spawn in 60 to 120 feet of water twice a year,
Mm-hmm.
and the fry float in on wind and tide and grow up in the interior marsh, push back out. And the biologists say somewhere around 27 to 30 inches they reach sexual maturity, and they
Yeah.
push back offshore. And the difference in redfish and a salmon or any of those other fish is once they reach sexual maturity and push outside into the breeding population, they don't die unless it's from natural predation by a shark or something bigger to eat them, and they stay
Mm-hmm.
out there and produce fish for the rest of their lives. So all that being said, there's a massive amount of smaller slot size redfish all in the interior coast of Louisiana. And the other statistic that I remember seeing from the biologist is we have upwards of 1,000,000 miles of fishable shoreline. So it's
Mm-hmm.
endless. And I tell guys all the time that come and book trips with me, or people that come down here and fish on their own, realistically, when you put the boat in at the launch, you could start fishing from the launch, fish 8 or 9 hours, and never be anywhere near the biomass or near the fish, because everything looks great. It all looks good.
Yeah.
There's a phenomenal amount of territory to cover on the inside, even pushing to the outside. When I say the outside, I'm talking about the outside edges of Venice or Black Bay, or out of Cocodrie, as you move
Mm-hmm.
out of the interior marsh. But you can be very successful and stay on these fish pretty consistently inside of the bank all year. And
Mm-hmm.
there's slower times as the water temperatures raise and get hotter.
Mm-hmm.
As you move into the mornings, 10, 11, 12 o'clock, as the water temperatures get into the upper 80s, lower 90s, they're no different than us. They're going to slow down their feeding patterns. But
Mm-hmm.
those first 3 or 4 hours of the morning, it's going to be pretty wild.
Yeah.
I base my business here and have fished here since 2015. So we make a living running 80% of our trips a year are redfish trips, whether it's
Yeah.
fly fishing or bull fishing or standard cork fishing, on
Mm-hmm.
standard charters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's a
and,
special
and
place.
you hit on a couple of things that I think make Louisiana unique. Obviously, we have a lot of listeners in Florida, Texas. Vast majority. Louisiana, we have a lot. A couple of them are popping in here
Sure.
on the live stream. But the vastness of it, and we think we have a vast fishery here up and down the Texas Gulf Coast, and Florida has the same thing. But the vastness of the marshes, the different depths that you can fish, etc.,
Yeah.
that can be a little intimidating. So obviously, we would recommend someone book Whiskey Bayou, or any charter that they would prefer, and really learn it. But for our listeners that like to go there, how do you get over that intimidation of the vastness of the Louisiana fishery?
I attack that a lot, and this is another thing that I run into with a lot of anglers that have their own equipment, that have their own boats, and I would encourage everybody that wants to do this on their own, do it by themselves. Don't be afraid to reach out to charter captains. You may get the wrong guy several times, but when you get the right one, when you get somebody that's really professional, that cares about the fishery and cares about sustaining the fishery and getting people interested in the sport, if you'll call us,
Mm-hmm.
reach out to us by email, whatever. And I can't speak for every charter captain in Louisiana, but if you call me, I'm going to help you. Okay.
And you're going to ask a bunch of questions.
Yeah, look, so I heard that when I was in college, a professor told me this once: there's no dumb questions, only dumb answers. Right.
Yeah.
So call and ask, reach out. We'll help you all I can. And I've had a lot of guys reach out to me from out of state and said, look, would you get on the boat with me one day and run me a safe track? And I'll do that, and there's so I'll get on the boat with you. We'll lay a track down of a safe area to run to get in and back out. And what I tell all of them and I caution them is, look, when you get off of this yellow, white, purple, black, whatever color we make this track, when you push off of this, get on the trolling motor and fish, trolling motor back to the track, and then run back to the ramp. And then you'll start to develop your own repertoire, your book of secrets, so to speak, on Louisiana. But it can be intimidating. It can be dangerous. A lot of places are dangerous. You guys have got a lot of dangerous places in Texas. Florida's got a lot of dangerous places around Steenhatchee and the Rocks, so you need somebody to give you some kind of parameters or some type of reasonable borders to stay inside so that you can learn the craft and pick it up. And it's always more fulfilling for an individual angler to do a lot of that on their own. And we'll facilitate that. Or I feel like as professionals, we should facilitate that.
Yeah. And the thing about Louisiana, when I've fished there, the actual Louisiana, Delacroix and other places, stuff sneaks up on you in those waters. It sneaks up on you pretty good if you don't know what you're doing. So the safe tracks is a good way to go. The other thing that you touched on is, and we've covered this ad nauseum on the podcast, the life cycle of the redfish and everything. But it just seems to me, and a lot of others, I'm sure, that those big reds, the bull reds, are a little more accessible, than a particular time of the year when they're spawning or whatever. Is that true, and why is that?
Here's so a little more accessible.
Accessible.
As easier to year, or just here all the time?
Well, they're there all the time, but it seems to be like in closer quarters, closer to easier to reach, so to speak.
So here's a redfish is a predator, and predators get large by expending the least amount of energy and ingesting the max amount of protein, right? So they're predators. They're going to predate. They're going to feed. So we have a pogie or a menhaden run bait fish that stay off the coast, and it's been my experience especially on the bull side, that there's periods of time and times of the year where they're more plentiful, more successful, and the bait draws them nearer to us. And there's a big push of menhaden and pogies coming out of Mexico and up the coast by you guys and around the tip of Louisiana, the mouth of the river, and by us. And so the years that they get tighter inside, to me at Delacroix, we have a better chance of getting on them for a longer period of time of the year. And I get this question a lot too: when's the best time to come and fish for those guys? And this is what I tell everybody: January, February, March, April, and May. When it gets hot in June, they push back off. July's a little slower. August, September, October, November, December. So there's not a lot of downtime.
That's what I'm talking about.
but so as far as fishing and the best times to come, real world, if you want to have the best chances to come and avoid volatile weather, skip January and February. If you're coming from out of town and you can't change plans at the drop of a hat, January and February can be phenomenal fishing, but the weather patterns can be very volatile. If you get one of those northeasters or one of those northern storms where the wind's going to blow 30 and the air temperature is going to be 40, going to be a tough few days for you. July and August can be tough because it's crust of the sun hot, but it's been my experience, especially in Venice in July and August, those pogies pushed up, those bulls are pushing in close. Those have been some of my most productive months for numbers of fish and big bull redfish out of Venice Marina or out of Cypress Cove Marina down the coast at the mouth of the river.
Yeah, that's what I was talking. It just seemed to be a little more accessible for those stretches.
No question.
Yeah. But what about we have our patterns. We have tailing reds a lot of times on the flats and such. What about the pattern differences that you've noticed in Louisiana, and how people might be able to focus on those when they get there?
So before I started this, I was a bass angler. Okay, so and the way that I got here was my girlfriend booked a charter with a redfishing captain for me, like in 2005, 2006. So I made 3 redfishing trips, and within 90 days, all my bass gear was sold, and I had a bay boat, and I was a redfish guy. But the way that I fish redfish is I pattern them. Okay, and as far as schools of redfish or finding schooling fish, 2 things have to happen for you to find that. You got to find clean water where you can see them. And it's got to be calm enough you can see them pushing on the surface. If you're not in a tower boat where you can be up above them and looking at them.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I do when I'm hunting fish, the first thing that I want, and I tell people this all the time, I want moving water. And guys ask me all the time, and girls, Um, do you like an incoming tide or an outgoing tide? If I get to pick, I want an outgoing tide because that flushes bait, pulls crabs, pogies, crawfish out of the marsh. But my first prerequisite is I want moving water. It's got to move. These fish are all tidal, and tidal movement triggers a feeding mechanism in all of these fish, whether it's redfish, trout, black drum, sheep's head, whatever they are. Moving water triggers those guys to eat. Okay, so I want movement, and then I want clean. And this is going to sound crude, but when I drop the trolling motor off the front of the boat, if I can see the foot of the trolling motor in the water, that's clean enough water for me to fish in. And a lot of people get tripped up in Louisiana hunting clean water. You're not going to find gin clear bathtub Florida water here because we're for all practical purposes, we're a brackish water river estuary. We're tied to the river. So there's always going to be some silt and some mud on the bottom. There's going to be a little stain in the water. It's going to be a little tannic. It's going to be a little brown. But if you drop a trolling motor over where you can move the boat and in other words, if you have a foot and a half of visibility, that's fishable water. So you can't see the schools, but you can pattern them and locate them.
No, that's great. In fact, I was just telling my son the other day, he was fishing with me on Monday, and he was asking about the whole, incoming or outgoing, and my answer was yes.
And that's the right answer. You have to have movement. That's an absolute fact.
Yeah. All right. And so before we get into some of the things that I think certainly, red fishermen need to know, and that's, getting the right braid with the right, leader,
Right.
etc. Let's talk about what you're throwing. It's funny because these tend to be more habits than rules. Like down where I am, we have the habit of throwing particular baits to particular colors. They help, and they're probably proven somewhere down the line. A lot of top waters on the flats, etc.
Right.
What are you generally most successful with throwing in Louisiana?
So the nature of my business is a fishing charter. So we're going to fish 200 days a year on average. And what I've learned on the charter side is it's a performance-based business. I need you to catch them exponentially worse than you want to catch them.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm a results-oriented guy. So a lot of my charters, if we're slot fishing and inside out of Delacroix, a bulk of what we're going to fish is going to be a 4-horseman cork, a cigar leader, and a jig head with a piece of dead or live shrimp on it because it just works. It's kind of like the hand grenade of inshore fishing. It does what it needs to do. Yeah. I fish a lot of guys out of Florida and a lot of guys out of Texas. And when they call me, they tell me, look, Joe, we would really prefer to throw artificials, and that's fine. We're like Burger King, man. We do it your way. If that's what you want to do, we'll do that. So when people ask me about moving baits or artificial baits in this order, this is the ones that I think are most effective on redfish. A standard Johnson Gold Spoon is deadly effective. And after that, it's going to be a safety pin style spinnerbait, 1/4 ounce lead head, 4-inch, 5-inch Bass Assassin swim tail, number 5 Colorado blade. That's very successful too. Now, in the last few years, Z-Man's come on some stuff that's very, very, very impressive. And I throw them heavy because I can cover ground. When I'm throwing an artificial bait, I want to cover as much water as I can, as far away from the boat as I can. So when I'm artificial fishing, we're never going to put the poles down and stop unless somebody hooks up. I'm going to be on the trolling motor. We're running a power pole move trolling motor. We're going to be running 2 or 3 on the motor, moving down the edges of grass lines and shorelines, and we're going to be blind casting. Yeah. Somebody's going to be on the bottom. Somebody's going to be on the top. Somebody's going to be throwing a gold spoon. Somebody's going to be throwing a spinnerbait or a 1/2 ounce or a 3/4 ounce chatterbait. And have you guys listen real close to this on the chatterbait. When I buy chatterbaits, I buy them in 1/2 and 3/4 because I'm throwing them a long way, and I buy 2 colors. I buy chartreuse shad or I buy spring brim, and I run both of those with a fire crawl trailer from Bass Assassin. So if you look at a spring brim from Z-Man in the chatterbait section, and you put that red crawl trailer on it, it looks like a blue crab.
Yeah.
These larger redfish predominantly predate on blue crabs and grass edges or snails. Can't replicate a snail. But what I just told them is very critical to making it happen. It's a moving bait. You can cover a lot of water. It doesn't get hung up in the grass. If it hangs up, you can rip it. It self-clears. It is deadly. When it's calm in the spring, when I can see them tailing, we'll throw some big spooks and we'll throw some she dogs and stuff like that. Because there's nothing on this earth more awesome than a topwater bite, and I love it. The problem is the number of days or the window where you get that to happen are very narrow.
Yeah, and we throw them 80% of the time down here on the flats.
But see, so we're always fishing over grass here because the river and fresh water. So we've got to suspend everything. We're fishing over a jungle.
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah.
So when you come to Louisiana, 3 rods: gold spoon, safety pin spinnerbait, chatterbait if you want to throw artificials, and bring your top waters. If it's calm, you can tie them on and throw them. But those 3 baits right there, day in day out. If I'm tournament fishing, I have those three lures tied on and a standalone jig head with a swim tail that I can pitch to a fish in front of me that I'm looking at, and a popping cork with a 12-inch leader and a gulp under it.
Yep. I mean,
that's the secret of tournament fishing.
You're speaking my language, because the one thing you said that I think most fishermen tend to forget, and I do it all the time on my boat, is you're throwing this, I'm throwing this, you're throwing that, and let's see what happens. You know, the 3 different styles of baits.
Right.
All right, so let's get into you got to trust your equipment, and I've been throwing the Seagar braid lately, and it's pretty incredible, and it's not something that, I'm just being honest, I had thrown a lot.
Right.
I've gotten into it. Now, obviously, we all know about Seagar leaders, but let's start with the braid first, and then we'll get into how you match them, because one thing about braids is people also get into habits on that. I always throw this. Once you break in, and it's good as is, but I found that once you break in the Seagar, the braid, it doesn't fray, it doesn't lose any strength, and it's just so much more supple and easy. I don't know how they do it, but it's pretty dang cool.
It truly is a game changer, and they've got 3 out now that we throw a lot. So, and I'll go over them by technique if that's what you want, so I can kind of match them up.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
So if you're popping cork fishing, I'd throw Seagar Smackdown. Okay, I'd throw that and on a spinning rod, I'd throw it in a 20-pound range on a 2500 to a 3500 series rod, and I'm gonna team that up with Seagar Inshore leader. Okay. The Seagar Inshore is extremely abrasion resistant. It comes in a 100-yard spool. It's very economical as far as a price point goes, and as far as a shock leader, it's very, very, very impressive. So when I'm cork fishing, I'm going to throw Tactex 20. I'm going to throw Seagar Inshore 30 or 20, 25 if the fish are finicky. If I'm trout fishing, when I tournament fish or I throw artificials, I'm going to throw Smackdown, and I'm going to throw.
Hey, I see a big number on there.
So here's why, and this is critical to the guys.
Because I throw 20 most of the time. Yeah.
If I'm tournament fishing on bait casters,
get them out of there.
I'm gonna throw 50 or 65, and here's why. When you hook up onto a fish and they're on the drag and you're trying to thumb them and get them to the boat fast, because you want to get them in the live well as fast as you can so that they don't die. 65 or 50 is a larger diameter, so if you go heavy on a drag, it doesn't cut into the spool and break the fish off.
Yeah.
Okay, so that matters there. If I'm throwing that on the spinning rod, I'm going to throw 30, and I can almost spool it. Now, and the leader I'm going to run on that's going to be Gold Label Inshore. It's the thinnest diameter that they make. The knot strength is phenomenal on it. It has the same refraction qualities as water. It's absolutely invisible in the water, and it's phenomenal. If I throw plugs, I'm gonna throw the Premier. The Premier is a little more supple. It's got a little less memory in it. It's not as stiff, and it allows the plug to walk better.
Yeah, that's well, you kind of reassured me, and affirmation, so to speak, because I definitely throw, and we'll put it in layman's terms, the green one. I throw the green one for the top waters, and then of course you can throw the others.
And you're on point now. And the last year they've released a lot of Japanese domestic market products. This is a new braid from Seagar's, PEX8. Okay. When I tournament fish now, my spinning rods, I'm throwing this. It's very, very, very small diameter. It's very, very, very sensitive line, and it works great. And they've got a new braid out off the Japanese domestic.
I have that one, the Grand Max.
The Grand Max is pretty special stuff. So when I'm throwing this stuff on my tournament rigs, these are the 2 that I'm running now. Yeah. And they're pretty special. But so day in, day out workhorse on a popping cork, you're going to be on Tactex and Inshore. On your bait casters, when you throw in plugs, and it's a little tougher presentation when the fish get finicky, you're gonna throw Seagar and Gold. You're gonna throw Smackdown and Gold Label. And if you want to go to the bleeding edge of technology, then you throw the JDM stuff.
Dude, Yeah, like talk about affirmation. I feel like I'm doing it right now because that's what I've
There
been
you go.
doing. and then and let's see how far we can take this.
Okay.
I throw the I forget the exact name, the gray.
Smackdown.
The gray, but the gray color.
Yeah.
Not because yeah, that's the one. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
good. Smackdown. Hey man, that's awesome. We'll get you on again on a future episode because like I said, our guys know it. Wanted to go straight to Louisiana, and just so people know, it's Whiskey Bayou Charters, and
That's it.
you obviously we're all about conservation and keep what you only need, that kind of stuff. If you're eating that night. And before we let you go, one thing that we've covered on the podcast, and I want to just get your opinion, your what your update is on the Menhaden in Louisiana. There's been a big controversy about how much they're taking in bycatch and all that. Give us an update on that before we let you go.
It's one of those situations where you have to be careful about how you address it. Louisiana is a special place.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that are special in Louisiana. The politics are pretty special too. The bogey boats and the Menhaden is an issue for us. My concern with that as an angler and as an individual who makes a living out of this marsh, we're taking a lot of the bait out of the water from a lot of the game fish that are in the water. And my concern is how close they do it. Now I know that I'm not 100% sure on this. And if I'm wrong, somebody can feel free to correct me, but I think they've established a 2-mile barriers where they're supposed to be whenever they collect that stuff. And I don't know how well they adhere to that. And I do know that I've seen a lot of dead bull reds float. And I know that anytime any commercial fishing you're doing, there's some bycatch and there's some things that go around that. My question to anybody in the state of Louisiana at this point is we're the only state in the union that allows those guys to still do that. Why do we do
that? Yeah. And we asked the same question.
And the two companies that do that are foreign entities that are over here fishing in our fishery. Why are we allowing that?
Yeah. We have asked the same question.
For a lot of people, that's not going to be a popular opinion, and to my detriment, if you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it. And that's how I feel about it. I think it's a problem. I don't see a way out of it long term. All we can do is keep fighting the fight and try to push them out and try to do the right thing, because I want this to be here. I fish a lot of families and a lot of kids on my boat, and I want this place to be as special as it is now for generations far past me. And in order to do that, we've got to get involved.
And that's why you're a perfect fit on the Bite Me podcast, because all our guys are right there in lockstep with you, and we don't mind ruffling a few feathers here and there. We've done more than our share on certain things.
I don't ever fault anybody making a living, but I think we got to be smarter about how we do things.
All right, that's Captain Joe Ezzell, and it's Whiskey Bayou Charters, and let's get back to the podcast. All right, we're now